A millionaire walks into a Manhattan café and leaves a waitress an insulting tip, barely enough to cover tax. Emily, tired of his arrogance, says with a smile, "Maybe if I play you a melody on the violin, the tip would be more generous." Richard explodes with laughter. "You play violin? Don't make me laugh. If you play something decent, I'll give you a tip you won't forget. But if you play out of tune, you get nothing." He thinks he's about to humiliate a talentless waitress in front of everyone. What he doesn't know, Emily goes home and returns carrying a case. Inside isn't just any violin. It's a $3 million Stradivarius, a family heirloom. And Emily? She's not just a waitress. She's a classically trained virtuoso who sacrificed her career to support her family. When she begins to play, the entire cafe falls silent. The music spills onto Times Square, stopping traffic. Then a man stands up, the conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and offers her an audition on the spot. Richard's face? Priceless. Watch what happens when arrogance meets undeniable talent. What city are you watching this video from and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. The air of New York City vibrated with a soulless sound. A street violinist stationed on a corner of Times Square scraped the strings of his instrument with mediocre technique. The notes, out of tune and devoid of emotion, were lost among the bustle of the city. People passed by without paying attention, absorbed in their own affairs. A few solitary coins lay timidly in the open case at his feet, silent testimony to his scarce success. Frustration was reflected on his face, a bitter expression that contrasted with the supposed joy of music. A few blocks away, in an elegant cafe overlooking Times Square, a young woman named Emily moved diligently between the tables. She worked as a waitress, dodging trays laden with steaming cups and golden croissants. Her appearance was modest, dressed in the cafe's simple uniform, but behind her eyes hid a secret passion: classical music. Since childhood, she had dreamed of playing the violin, a deep longing that resonated in her soul. At home, carefully guarded in a velvet-lined case, rested her greatest treasure: a Stradivarius violin, a family heirloom of incalculable value. She longed for the day when she could dedicate her life to music, to caress the strings of her Stradivarius, and let its melody fill the world. However, family responsibilities and the need for stable work kept her tied to the reality of the cafe. At that moment, the cafe door opened, and a man entered with firm steps and an attitude that denoted superiority.
It was Richard, a millionaire known for his arrogance and contempt toward those he considered inferior.
He walked through the establishment with a disdainful gaze, observing the other customers with a mixture of condescension and boredom. He sat at a table overlooking the square and called Emily with an impatient gesture. He ordered the most expensive coffee on the menu, with a tone suggesting he was doing the establishment a favor. His phone conversation, at an unnecessarily loud volume, revealed shady business dealings and a cynical view of the world. Richard was the type of person who enjoyed flaunting his wealth and belittling others. An unpleasant character who believed himself above everything and everyone. When Emily brought him his coffee, Richard left her a minimal tip, almost insulting. It was a ridiculous amount, barely enough to cover the coffee's tax. Emily, tired of Richard's condescending attitude and his contempt for others' work, felt a spark of rebellion. With an ironic smile, she said, "Maybe if I play you a melody on the violin, the tip would be more generous, don't you think?" Richard let out a thunderous laugh, assuming Emily was simply a talentless waitress trying to earn a few extra dollars. "You play the violin? Don't make me laugh," he responded with a mocking smile. "If you play something decent, I'll give you a tip you won't forget. But if you play out of tune, you get nothing." He accepted the challenge with the intention of humiliating Emily, convinced that her lack of talent would be exposed to everyone. Emily, unfazed by Richard's arrogance, accepted the challenge with a determined look in her eyes. The moment had come to prove her worth and silence the mockery. She knew she had the opportunity to change her destiny and show the world the talent she kept inside. If you like stories of overcoming obstacles and hidden talent, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find inspiring stories of people who have defied expectations and achieved their dreams. Join our community and discover the power of talent and perseverance. The bet was made. Emily, with the serenity of someone who knows their own worth, explained to Richard that this wasn't about a simple violin, but an instrument of incalculable value. If my performance seems worthy to you, I expect a tip befitting the quality of music you'll hear. If on the contrary you don't like it, I'll accept your judgment, she declared, with a calmness that disconcerted Richard. He, feeling watched by the other cafe customers, couldn't back down. Curiosity and expectation were palpable in the atmosphere. Some of those present knew Richard and his reputation as a spendthrift and show-off, while others sympathized with Emily, tired of his arrogance. The bet had suddenly become a public affair. Richard, trapped in his own trap, reluctantly agreed, without imagining what was about to come. With surprising speed, Emily left the cafe. Richard, taking advantage of her absence, addressed the rest of those present with a sly smile. "I bet she's going to come back with a toy violin, one of those they sell at souvenir shops," he commented, provoking some timid laughter. He felt confident of his victory, convinced that Emily was nothing more than a simple waitress with delusions of grandeur. "It'll be fun to watch her make a fool of herself," he added with a look full of contempt. The minutes passed slowly, increasing the tension in the atmosphere. Some customers, intrigued by the situation, took out their cell phones to record the moment. The street, oblivious to what was happening inside the cafe, continued its frenetic pace with tourists and New Yorkers rushing about their daily business. Finally, Emily returned to the cafe carrying a large rectangular case. Richard, seeing her enter, couldn't help but let out a laugh. Well, it looks like you've taken this seriously," he exclaimed sarcastically. "Let's see. Show us that marvel," he insisted, with the intention of ridiculing her even more. Emily, ignoring his comments, placed the case on an empty table and opened it carefully. A sepulchral silence invaded the cafe. Before everyone's astonished eyes appeared an antique violin of dark, shiny wood with a varnish that reflected the light of the lamps. It was an instrument of singular beauty, with a history engraved in each of its grain patterns. Richard, seeing it, was momentarily speechless. The mocking smile vanished from his face, replaced by an expression of disbelief. He knew it was a valuable instrument, but still doubted Emily's ability to play it. A brief flashback flooded Emily's mind. She remembered her childhood dedicated to studying the violin. Her parents, despite their humble means, had done everything possible to support her passion. She had attended the best classes, practicing hours and hours each day, dreaming of becoming a great concert performer. However, the economic crisis hit her family hard, forcing her to abandon her studies and look for work to help at home. The Stradivarius violin, inherited from her grandfather, became her greatest treasure, a symbol of her truncated dreams and a promise of a better future. Working as a waitress was a sacrifice, but it allowed her to support her family and maintain the hope of playing again someday. The expectation in the cafe was palpable. The customers watched Emily with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Some recognized Richard, aware of his reputation and his snubs. Others, on the other hand, identified with Emily, a young working woman struggling to get ahead. The atmosphere had been charged with a special energy, a mixture of tension and hope. Everyone waited impatiently for the moment when Emily would begin to play. The silence was so profound that you could hear the tick-tock of the wall clock. The square, through the cafe windows, seemed to have stopped its usual bustle, as if it too were waiting for the melody to begin. The die was cast. With exquisite delicacy, Emily took the Stradivarius from the case. The violin, under the dim light of the cafe, seemed to come alive. The wood resonated with a centuries-old history, with the melodies of past generations that had caressed its strings. With slow, precise movements, Emily began to tune the instrument. Each note, each adjustment was a declaration of intent, a promise of the music that was about to come. Her fingers, agile and experienced, danced over the pegs, seeking perfect harmony. The sound, at first timid and hesitant, acquired strength and clarity, filling the space with a subtle, powerful vibration. Emily closed her eyes, concentrating on the music flowing within her. She ignored Richard's inquisitive looks, his mocking smile, and his condescending attitude. She immersed herself in her own world, a universe of notes and emotions where only she and her violin existed. Her breathing became deeper and more measured, preparing for the magical moment when the strings would vibrate and the melody would begin to flow. It was an instant of profound connection, of total surrender to art. In that moment, Emily wasn't a simple waitress but an artist, a violin virtuoso ready to share her talent with the world. With a decisive gesture, Emily raised the bow and gently placed it on the strings. An absolute silence invaded the cafe. Everyone present, expectant, awaited the first sound, the first note that would break the spell. And then the music began. It was a classical piece, simple, a melancholic and sweet adagio, but performed with impeccable technique. Each note was precise, each musical phrase expressed with feeling and passion. The atmosphere in the cafe changed drastically. Conversation ceased. Cell phones were put away, and gazes focused on Emily. The music, like a gentle balm, flooded the space, calming tensions and elevating spirits. As the piece progressed, the music became more complex and emotive. Emily demonstrated surprising virtuosity, executing difficult passages with astonishing ease. Her fingers flew over the fingerboard, creating intricate melodies and rich harmonies. The violin seemed to cry, laugh, sigh, transmitting a complete range of emotions. The cafe customers, captivated by her talent, let themselves be carried away by the magic of the music. Some closed their eyes, enjoying the moment. Others watched Emily with admiration, recognizing the greatness of her art. The music, more than simple entertainment, had become a transformative experience. Richard, for his part, began to feel uncomfortable. He realized he had gravely underestimated Emily. His arrogant smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of surprise and bewilderment. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. That waitress he had considered inferior was demonstrating exceptional talent. Emily's music, like a relentless mirror, reflected his own superficiality and lack of appreciation for art. He felt ridiculous, ashamed of his arrogant attitude and his erroneous judgment. But Emily's music didn't just resonate inside the cafe. The sound, amplified by the establishment's acoustics, extended toward the street, attracting a small, curious crowd from Times Square. Passers-by, attracted by the melody, stopped in front of the cafe, wondering what was happening. The normal flow of traffic was interrupted, creating a small jam. Emily's music, like a powerful magnet, had managed to stop time, capturing the attention of the entire city. The square, once a hotbed of activity. Are you enjoying this story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now let's continue with the video. Had been transformed into an improvised auditorium, where music was the undisputed protagonist. Emily, at the peak of her performance, poured her soul into each note. The piece reached its high point, a torrent of overflowing emotions that flooded the cafe. The violin moaned and vibrated, transmitting the passion, the struggle, and the love for art that resided in Emily's heart. It was a moment of catharsis, of liberation, where music became the universal language of feelings. The notes, high and low, intertwined in a hypnotic melody that transported listeners to a dream world. It was impossible to remain indifferent to the overwhelming force of her performance. Suddenly, in the middle of the musical climax, a man stood up from a nearby table. He was an elderly gentleman with gray hair and a penetrating gaze. His face, marked by the wrinkles of time, radiated wisdom and experience. He was a famous orchestra conductor, internationally recognized for his talent and passion for classical music. He had been having coffee at the establishment, enjoying the tranquility of the atmosphere when Emily's music had completely captivated him. The orchestra conductor, visibly moved, approached Emily with firm steps. His eyes shone with enthusiasm as he recognized the exceptional talent emanating from the young waitress. "Bravo, bravo!" he exclaimed in a powerful voice, interrupting the music for an instant. "What a wonderful performance. I haven't heard anything like this in a long time." The cafe customers, surprised by the interruption, directed their gazes toward the orchestra conductor. Recognizing his familiar face, the atmosphere had been charged with even greater expectation. "Miss," the conductor continued, addressing Emily with respect, "you have extraordinary talent, Your technique is impeccable. Your musical sensitivity is profound, and your passion is contagious. It's a shame that this talent is being wasted serving coffee. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and I'd like to offer you an audition to become part of our orchestra. The conductor's proposal resonated in the café like thunder. The customers, astonished, couldn't believe what they were hearing. That waitress, who until a few minutes ago was unknown, was being invited to join one of the country's most prestigious orchestras. Emily, with the violin still in her hands, was left speechless. Emotion overwhelmed her, feeling her dream coming true. She had waited for this moment for so long that she couldn't believe it was really happening. Tears welled up in her eyes, mixing joy and gratitude. It was a unique opportunity, a door opening to a future full of possibilities. Meanwhile, Richard felt completely ashamed and defeated. Humiliation consumed him inside. The cafe customers looked at him with disapproval, aware of his arrogant attitude and his error in judgment. His attempt to ridicule Emily had turned against him, exposing his own superficiality and lack of sensitivity. He felt like a clown, a ridiculous buffoon who had been unmasked before everyone. Richard, trying to minimize the situation, stood up from his chair with a forced smile. Well, it was just a joke," he said with a trembling voice. "There's no need to get serious. We all know this is nothing more than a game." But no one believed him. His words sounded empty and false, lacking sincerity. The cafe customers, indignant at his attitude, ignored him completely, focusing their attention on Emily and the orchestra conductor. Richard, feeling isolated and despised, sank back into his chair, feeling the weight of his own humiliation. He had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate anyone by their appearance or their work. Talent can emerge in the most unexpected places, and arrogance always ends up being punished. Emily, with her heart beating 1,000 miles an hour, deeply thanked the orchestra conductor's offer. His words, full of praise and recognition, resonated within her like a heavenly melody. The opportunity to play professionally again, to dedicate her life to music, was a dream come true. However, a shadow of doubt clouded her joy. Leaving her job as a waitress, her source of stable income, was an enormous risk. She had family responsibilities, an elderly mother and a younger brother who depended on her. Could she afford the luxury of pursuing her dream, risking her family's economic stability? The dilemma tormented her, dividing her heart between passion and responsibility. "Mr. Conductor," Emily responded with a trembling voice, "I deeply appreciate your generous offer. It's an honor that you consider my talent worthy of your orchestra. However, I must confess that I have some doubts. My personal situation is complicated, and I don't know if I can afford the luxury of abandoning my current job." She briefly explained her family situation, her need to maintain a secure income, and her fear of not living up to expectations. Her sincerity moved the orchestra conductor, who understood her concerns. "I perfectly understand your situation, miss," the conductor responded kindly. "But let me insist that your talent is unique, exceptional. It would be a real shame if you wasted it. Music needs artists like you, people who transmit emotions and touch the public's heart. I can't promise you that the path will be easy, but I assure you that we'll provide all the support you need. I offer you a contract with favorable conditions, a decent salary, and the possibility of developing your full artistic potential. Don't let fear prevent you from pursuing your dream." The conductor, with his wisdom and persuasion, tried to convince Emily to make the right decision. He knew he had before him an artist of great talent, a jewel he couldn't let escape. Unexpectedly, other cafe customers began to encourage Emily to accept the offer. "Come on, Emily, don't miss this opportunity," shouted a lady from a nearby table. "You have incredible talent. You must share it with the world," added another customer enthusiastically. Some even offered to help her financially. "If you need some money to start, don't hesitate to ask," said a man with a kind smile. "We're all with you. We'll support you in whatever you need." The unexpected support from the cafe customers deeply moved Emily. She felt embraced, loved, and valued by the community. Her fear began to dissipate, replaced by a wave of hope and determination. Perhaps, after all, she wasn't alone in this adventure. Perhaps with everyone's help she could overcome her obstacles and achieve her dream. Richard, seeing that attention was focused on Emily and that his humiliation was becoming more evident, tried to flee silently. He stood up from his chair carefully, trying to go unnoticed among the crowd. However, the orchestra conductor, who hadn't lost sight of his movements, stopped him with a firm voice. "One moment, sir," the conductor exclaimed, pointing at Richard with his finger. "Don't leave so quickly. You still have a debt pending with this young woman." Richard, startled, stopped in his tracks, feeling everyone's gaze upon him. The conductor, with an ironic smile, reminded him of his initial bet. "Remember, sir," the conductor said sarcastically, "you promised a generous tip if the young lady played well. And let me tell you that her performance has been sublime, so please fulfill your promise." Richard had no choice but to accept his fate. With his face red with shame, he took out his wallet and reluctantly extracted a wad of bills. The sum was considerable, far superior to the insulting tip he had left at the beginning. He handed them to Emily with his head down, without looking her in the eyes. It was a pathetic image, that of a rich and powerful man, humiliated by his own arrogance. The satisfaction of seeing his defeat spread among the café customers, who applauded the poetic justice of the moment. Richard, without saying a word, left the café in a hurry, fleeing from the accusing looks and the weight of his own pettiness. His exit was received with a silence charged with meaning, a silence that spoke of the victory of humility over pride. Emily, with the bills in hand, felt a mixture of relief and gratitude, not for the money itself, but for the symbolism it represented. It was a vindication of her talent, a confirmation of her worth as an artist. However, the most important thing was that this incident had given her the final push to make a crucial decision. She looked the orchestra conductor in the eyes and with a radiant smile told him, "I accept your offer, Mr. Conductor. I accept the opportunity to dedicate my life to music." Her words were received with an outburst of applause and cheers. The café customers stood up, celebrating Emily's victory as if it were their own. They wished her much success in her musical career, expressing their admiration and affection. The atmosphere in the café had been completely transformed. Tension and distrust had disappeared, replaced by an atmosphere of joy and hope. Customers approached Emily to congratulate her, to embrace her, and to offer their support. It was a moment of community, of human connection, where everyone felt part of a shared dream. Music had worked its magic, uniting people from different backgrounds and creating an invisible bond that transcended social and economic differences. Emily, overwhelmed with emotion, smiled sincerely. Her heart overflowed with gratitude. The moment had come to leave behind her life as a waitress and embrace her destiny as a musician. She knew the path wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to face challenges with courage and determination. She had a talent to share, a passion to nurture, and a dream to fulfill. And now, with the support of her family, her friends, and the community, she felt capable of achieving anything. Emily's story is an example of how talent can emerge in the most unexpected places. It's a demonstration of how perseverance, humility, and passion can lead to success. It's a lesson in how kindness can overcome arrogance, and how superficiality can be unmasked by authenticity. Her story reminds us that we all have hidden potential, a talent waiting to be discovered. We just need to believe in ourselves, persevere in our dreams, and have the courage to follow our hearts. If you like this inspiring story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Here you'll find more stories of hidden talent, personal growth, and people who have defied expectations to reach their goals. Join our community and discover the power of inspiration. And don't miss our next video, where we'll tell you the story of a gardener who became a famous sculptor. We'll be waiting for you. Emily's music that afternoon in New York would resonate forever in the hearts of those who heard it, a constant reminder that beauty and talent can flourish even in the humblest of gardens. The city, once again in motion,